I'm at the Tony Awards because the show that I produced on Broadway was nominated for a Tony. I'm in the audience. Bernadette Peters is up on the stage. She has the envelope. She opens it and says, Memphis. That's the show I produced. Everyone in the audience around me, my co-producers, the partners, the people involved, stand up. They're excited. They're cheering. They're so like, and I remember in that moment having this moment of, the first thing I thought was, oh, thank God. Because I knew my investors were going to get their money back. Mm-hmm. They were going to get paid. Like, we would have closed without it. I knew that. So I was like, oh, thank God. Okay. And then I had this moment of, this is it. This is it. This is what this moment is. This doesn't feel right. This isn't what this is supposed to feel like. I'm literally walking up onto the stage and having this out-of-body experience of this. It's not right. This is not. This is not it. And that, honestly, was when my real work began.
Hello, beautiful people. Yes, I am talking to you. Are you ready to feel confident AF, free from the expectations and opinions of others, and create ultimate self-trust in who you are, what you say, and how you show up in every part of your life? If you answered a hell yes, I am, I guarantee this episode will empower you to be 100% yourself, 100% of the time, no shame or guilt needed. It's time for you to strut your stuff, express yourself with freedom, and fully embrace every freaking fabulous part of you. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Road to Radical Visibility. My name is Rachel Freemon Sowers, also known as the Break Free Bitch, because I am passionate about helping people just like you break free from the social constructs, opinions, and expectations that are keeping you from experiencing your life exactly the way that you want to. And if you've hung out here with me for very long, you know that personally and professionally, the motto is to be 100% yourself, 100% of the time, no shame or guilt needed. And now, as you can see, I already have a guest right there. And I don't say anything, don't do it. And I am so excited because you will understand exactly why I'm having him on the show. I'm going to read his introduction to you now. So here we go. Nick Demos is a Tony Award-winning Broadway producer, documentary filmmaker, conscious business coach, and manifestation expert. With over 15 years of teaching breathwork, yoga, and creativity, as well as 30 years in the entertainment industry, he has traveled from the Tony Awards to ashrams and runs a multi-million-dollar business in between. Hello. Nick guides you to clear blocks and tap into your creative intuition so that you can be unapologetically visible and manifest while making monumental impact. Now you know why he is here. Thank you for being on the show, Nick. I am so excited about this interview.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me.
So if you're listening to the podcast, what you can't see is like I literally am having this vibrational stuff in my chest because I'm just so excited. Nick and I met through a mutual friend that we both have. And it was really the minute I saw him, I was like, oh, I want to watch him. I want to see what he does. And I felt an instant connection. We are both part of the LGBTQ plus community. It's the passion that we have to help that part of our community. So let's get into it. The first question I always ask is, what does radical visibility mean to you?
I think first, I want to say I love that the name of this podcast is Road to. This show is the Road to, because it is a journey. Mm-hmm. Radical visibility is a journey. It's a journey of self-love. It's a journey of self-acceptance. It's a journey of self-actualization. Mm-hmm. And it must start there, right? Because you have to be fully okay with the good, the bad, what we call good and bad, the dark, the light. the green, the purple, the yellow, the pink, the purple, all parts of the self.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And be willing to sort of sit in it and learn to love it. And then you begin to share it. And when you share yourself, the flawed, the beautiful, the insane, crazy parts in your head, all of it.
Because that's for real. Just that's why.
Yeah. When you begin to share it, that's when it becomes radically visible to the outside. But it starts first with that radical acceptance of the self.
I love it. The definition is always different for each person that I have on here. And it shifts even for, I don't know if you've experienced this, it even shifts for yourself as you move through that journey, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
You know, I just got back from Costa Rica and I walked out in low tide. I walked out on this, like, it was almost like a triangle of rocks. And so I walked out, I was just being called to the tip of the rocks, right? And along, you see all these like tide pools and these deep crevices where the water has worn away, you know, the rock. And in there is beautiful marine life. Right. And I felt like those are part of those deep crevices of ourselves. Part of the journey is diving into there and noticing the muck that's on the side and the beautiful things that are in there, and really learning to say without a judgment, almost, look at all of me.
Yeah.
Right. And that self-actualization that comes and whoa, I mean, just the power that comes out of that to experience your life exactly the way that you want.
In this moment right now.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You don't have to wait. You don't have to like want it. You don't have to accomplish really anything to get there. You can be in that spot now.
You don't have to be healed, quote unquote. You don't, it can happen right now. You're not broken. You're not a broken toy.
Right. I mean, like, yes, I often say to my clients, complete, whole, and perfect, just as we are right now, sitting right now in this space. Yeah. So I guess the next question that this conversation is leading me to is what was one of the most significant moments, if not what is happening for you now, that has caused you to like manifest and experience life exactly the way that you're wanting to now? Like, what has been a monumental thing?
You know, I was a dancer as a kid, a professional dancer as a teen and early 20s. And I have since realized that that was a way of expressing my pain from my childhood, from not being seen fully as this queer child that I was, not being understood by a family who that just wasn't in their frame of reference even. I grew up in rural Montana. And somehow I found the dance teacher next door, thankfully, Donna Jimison, thankfully found her, who really introduced me to a new world and a new way of being. And it was a way for me to express myself. But underneath that, there was this sort of deep well of pain. And so I was seeking external validation constantly. And the way that I did it was through being a performer, through dance. But something turned for me in my mid-20s where I realized it was no longer working. And I was doing a show at Radio City Christmas Spectacular with the Rockettes.
Well, of course you were.
And, of course. You know, as one does. And there are boys in the show, believe it or not. There's like 12 boys in the show, and I was one of the boys. And we were dancing a Nutcracker ballet. And in this ballet, the thing about it at Radio City is that it's like very family friendly, right? So we were all in bear costumes. So I have a literal bear head on. And I am jumping from a trampoline, and I'm not joking, doing a Russian jump, which is like toe touch, onto the stage with the bear head on. And it's a grid system at Radio City. There's these numbers all over the floor because it's huge, and there's these elevators, and it's actually very dangerous. And I'm looking for my number on the floor because we have to stay on our numbers. And it's Christmas, and it's like my 5th show of the day because it's insane there. And I'm hopping around, and I'm leaping, and I'm jumping, and tears start rolling down my cheeks. inside the bear head on Christmas. And I have this moment where I've been like, I am so not seen right now. I am so not being heard right now. As a dancer, you're told what to do, where to go, what number to stand on. Don't ask any questions. Don't speak. And I remember going to my dressing room and I took the bear hat off, and I remember looking in the mirror and saying to myself, this is not your life. This is not the life you want to have. And you got to change it. And I got on the phone the very next day, old school style. I picked up the damn phone and started calling everyone I knew who I'd ever worked with and ever done anything with. And I just pronounced it. I said, I'm a director and I'm a choreographer now. I'm looking for work. And one of the people that I called, Alan Cornell down at Riverside Theater, Florida, still exists, said, well, we just lost our choreographer for Godspell. Why don't you come down to Florida and choreograph this show? I said, great, I'll be there. A month later, I started my career, and within 1 year, I had fully transitioned out of being this dancer into an artist that was speaking and using my voice and being seen for the truth in me, not what somebody else was telling me who I was supposed to be.
Holy fuck around. For the audience, I know for a fact that you have felt the same thing Nick has felt. I have felt the same thing Nick is talking about. How many times we are seriously just told how we are supposed to be, who we even are, by religious constructs, other societal constructs, by school educational constructs, all of it. And go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, and it's a little insidious too, because I thought because I was a dancer that I was breaking through that mold, because boys were not supposed to be dancers. And there's so many layers to it. Layers upon layers. Layers upon layers that I'd had to like continually, and still do, continually burst through. It's a road. It's a journey going back to that. It's not one and done.
Nope. And, there are multiple tools and skills we use with our clients, and I'm assuming you use them on yourself. I use mine on myself to continue down that road. And yet it is this journey. It is a beautiful, I don't know, for me, it's just a beautiful river that just keeps flowing. And sometimes it widens, and then sometimes it gets really narrow. But every time within that, you are being released even more.
Yeah.
I
often say for me that it's like an onion. That's my sort of an analogy. You peel a layer and you peel a layer, and sometimes it makes you cry, right? And yet there's this sweetness at the center of it, because an onion is actually very sweet. It's a thing of beauty. It's organic and it's growing. And it is not, and it does feel never ending, because it is, because we're here, because we're alive, because we're constantly shifting and changing and growing and learning and becoming and being. And so it's not ever going to be done until that last breath comes out of you. Right. And then we transcend to something, who knows what. We don't know. Nobody really knows the truth of that. Like we can say it's heaven. We can say it's this. Nobody knows. You don't know.
Nope.
You know? But what I do know is that you're here because you have breath in you. And it's the only thing you need to live. Right. Literally the only thing that you need. Everything else you can go with for some time. You can go without food for a bit. You can go without, even water for a bit. But you can't go without breath. When that's gone, you're done. 21,600 breaths on average per person per day.
Amazing.
And when that's gone, you're gone.
Well, and it sounds like what you do, and what I often remind my clients, is the simple act of breathing. The simple act of breathing is a skill. Like it is a tool. Yeah, it is that thing in which you can return back. I had a client say, give me more tools. Give me more tools. I'm like, here's the tool. You're already doing it. Now let's go deeper within that. Let's make it conscious. Let's make it intentional. Let's fill the body. Right. I mean, I'm as I tried to tap dance. I've tried to do ballet. Let me just tell you, that did not ever work out for me. But I gave it my best shot, and then I decided, well, I'll just go do some other bigger sport where I use my whole entire body because, but as we find out what our path is and create this ultimate trust within ourselves to follow that, to listen to all those parts of us. And for me, it's what I call the truest part, the wise one within me that knows, right? And how to connect with that. So that was in your 20s.
Yeah.
Developmentally, we redo again in 30, redo again in 40.
Yeah. And I redid for sure. At 28 years old, it was just right before my 30th, 29. I was now directing and choreographing full time, and I was at a theater in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And while I was there, they fired the artistic director, the producer of the theater. The board of directors did. And the president of the board turned to me and said, will you run the theater for a year while we do a national search? And I said, abso-friggin-lutely. Because I knew that I would learn a shit. Is that okay?
I already said the F word, so yes.
Oh, good. That's right. You did.
I did.
We're good. Okay. We swear around here. Woo. Phew. Because I have a potty mouth, as my mother would say. And I just knew that I was going to learn a lot. And so that year, I worked my ass off, honestly. And they came back to me at the end of the year and they said, we don't want to do a national search. We found our person. We want you to stay. We've had the most successful year, both financially and artistically, in over a decade. Will you stay? And so I did. And I stayed there and really built that theater, grew it tremendously. We did 2 capital campaigns, 2 new theaters, added a children's academy. We went from, about $1 million a year budget into 8 figures, and really created some really wonderful theater for that city. But around 35, 36, about 8, 9 years later, I began to get restless. And I decided to take a month off and go to teacher training for yoga. I had been practicing in my backyard. I had this shed, like a Home Depot, one of those, you know what I mean? Like one of those Home Depot sheds. I had put one in my backyard. I put in hardwood floors. I had fans. I had flowy curtains. I would go back there. I had my own yoga shanty, right? But I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Zero idea. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go to teacher training. I want to deepen my practice. I want to know more about these old ancient practices, because I knew they were important, but I didn't fully know how to embody that. So I went, took a month off because I was tired, and we're in meditation in teacher training. And what came to me was, you need to quit your job. And I was like, oh no, hell no. I have a full-time job in the theater with benefits in the theater. I get to do whatever I want. I've got this wonderful staff we're building. You need to quit your job. Fuck me. But I knew it was true. And it took me a year really to come to a full acceptance of that. It was in the back of my brain, niggling at the back of your brain, being like, okay, come on. And finally I did decide to, and I gave them a year notice.
Of course you did.
So I could find somebody to replace me, and that was a really interesting transition, because I knew I wanted to go back to New York. I knew I wanted to produce on Broadway. I knew that I needed a dramatic change. And so I started a production company. So now I'm, mid to late 30s, about to hit that 40 thing. I seem to do things about 3 years ahead of those decades that you're talking about.
It's about the right time.
Yeah. And that next path was deciding that I was going to start a production company. And I took a friend who I hadn't seen in several years out to lunch. We were just chatting. We had reconnected at a Halloween party. And I said to her, she had been in the theater when we were a bit younger, and she was older than I am, about 20 years older than I am, and she had been married and really had been out of the theater for years. She'd been a dresser, backstage dressing people. And I took her to lunch, and I said, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to leave the theater, and I'm going to start a production company. And she said, tell me a bit more about that. And so I started to explain it and what I was looking for. And I needed to find investors. And at the end of the lunch, she wrote me a check for $500,000 to get me started. Oh. So that final year at the theater, I was running the theater. I was lead producing a show on the West End in London and prepping as I was working on a Broadway show that was going to open the following year in New York. Mm. It was an amazing final year. It was transitory. It was incredible. But it was also like, what in the hell is wrong with you?
Well, noticing a pattern here, that internal voice, listening to the internal voice, one of my favorite movies, and although this is going to sound cliche, is Eat, Pray, Love. And it's that moment when she's on the floor in the bathroom and she's like, God, tell me what to do. And the thing that happens is she hears her own voice. Yeah. And it is one of the most fucking powerful, courageous things we can do is to listen to our own knowing.
So that takes me to the next part of this, which is fast forward another year later. I'm at the Tony Awards because the show that I produced on Broadway was nominated for a Tony. I was a co-producer on that show.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm in the audience. Bernadette Peters is up on the stage. She has the envelope. She opens it and says, Memphis. That's the show I produced. Everyone in the audience around me, my co-producers, the partners, the people involved stand up. They're excited. They're cheering. They're so and I remember in that moment, having this moment of the first thing I thought was, oh, thank God. Because I knew my investors were going to get their money back. Mm-hmm. They were going to get paid. We would have closed without it. I knew that. So I was like, oh, thank God. Okay. And then I had this moment of, this is it. This is it. This is what this moment is. This doesn't feel right. This isn't what this is supposed to feel like. I'm literally walking up onto the stage and having this out of body experience of this. It's not right. This is not, this is not it. And that honestly was when my real work began, because I had all of those years. That's, as a kid with my hairbrush, back when I had hair, my hairbrush, I would stand in front of the mirror and do my acceptance speech for my big award, my Tony, my Emmy, my whatever, right? This is not what it was supposed to feel like. And that's really when I knew that I had to dig in deeper, because that was that external validation that I was seeking. And then when you get it and internally you're not there, that was just the moment.
I think, you don't know this, just FYI, and it's going to make me emotional. I felt that just 3 days ago. And when you feel that, if you're listening or watching, do it. Please do it. My listeners know I get emotional. It's fine with me, Yeah. But it's in those moments of there is something deeper here to do. Yeah. And it's almost when your chest just goes and it just opens up and you're like you're ready.
Yeah. It's the invitation.
Yes.
And you choose whether or not you're going to accept the invitation to the party.
Right.
Because the party is not always pretty. It is a party because
It
is, but it's not a pretty party. And this is when the sitting in your shit really comes into play.
Yeah.
And being vulnerable and open and honest and learning to be okay in it.
Yeah.
And that's really what I did. I went and spent time with a teacher. I even lived with a teacher for a while, and a spiritual teacher, and really like dug in and began to unpack lots of layers of all that I spoke about before, of not being felt seen or heard, but also the sexual trauma that I had experienced and as a teen, and really had to look at the parts of myself that were trying so hard, honestly.
Yeah.
But trying so hard to be perfect for everyone. And I wasn't perfect. And it didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And here I was supposed to be at the pinnacle of success. And it wasn't success to me.
Yeah. I did a large speaking event in our town, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, it was the second time I was invited back. It was an honor for me and that. But right after that, even though like I got done speaking, and then literally an hour later, I got on a plane for Scotland. Like the dream was coming true, making money, traveling, all the things. And then it's like, oh, wait, there's more rawness that needs to come out. There's more, I don't know how to say it, like this authentic flow that needs to come. Right. And it's a magical thing. And yes, it's not always pretty. And it's not always massively painful either.
No.
Right. But that's the beauty of that. These journeys that we go on as humans pretty much every decade, if we're listening. I really do believe that. And these awakenings come, right? These epiphanies or whatever. And it's knowing that we want, allowing ourselves to peel off those layers. It's almost even taking off clothes. And especially for myself in the LGBTQ plus community and coming out, it's years of taking off layers. It's every single, time that you're like, have that realization.
Yeah.
And it is different. We are all human, but it is different in our community. Yeah.
And that was a big part of that as well. Was the coming out. Yes. Did I come out at 18? Yes. Did I come out to my parents at 22? Yes. Did I come out to the full world as to who I was really? No, because for years I'd been taught how to lie.
Yes.
And I got really good at it. Like I was a master. As so many of us are, because we were taught how to do it from as early as we can remember. And so consequently, we get really, really good at it to the point where we even fool ourselves at times.
Yeah. For me, it was in the 4th grade. And we would stay home all summer by ourselves because, my parents had to work. And the neighbor girl from up the road, we kissed. And at that moment, I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to just love boys. But all the years after that, having that shit drilled into us, like, look like this, be like this, you're going to hell. I was even talking to another friend in Costa Rica and how in religious constructs, the youth pastor could sleep with a young woman in the youth group, but he would just ask for forgiveness and he stayed. But if you were gay or if you were all of those things, you would just be cast out. And if you're a woman who did something wrong, you would be punished with your scarlet letter. Right? And it's just like all of those layers.
Yeah.
And how we help. And, you know, you've talked a little bit about your filmmaking and, you know, let alone your business. So I'll have all the links to Nick's information in the YouTube description and in the podcast description, so you can check those out. But really how your filmmaking has progressed in such a way to where you reveal intimate parts of yourself through your film.
Yeah. What the beauty of that moment at the Tonys was that then I began to dig in and really say, what do I really want to say here? Who do I really want to be in the world? What kind of art do I want to reflect that's truth? And from my perspective and my point of view, and those that feel unseen and unheard. And one of those projects is an LGBTQ plus documentary about body image. And it's a personal documentary for me, where I dive into some of these stories that have been talking about today, but in the framework of how I internalize them and how I put on masks and armor on my body so that I could fit into a culture. Because even within talk about the layers, there is a culture particularly in the gay male community, of what the body is supposed to look like or supposed to be, or what's socially acceptable or what is attractive. And I desperately wanted to be loved. And I became dysmorphic ultimately. And that's really unpacking that, and why that happens in this particular community is really what the film is about.
Well, I can't wait to watch it, because I work with gay men, and, you know, even just saying like, you know, I'm going to the gym because I think I need this, or because I think I need that. Right. And remembering this, there's multiple layers, but at the core of everything, we have been taught by our society, by the social constructs that have developed, that we are needing to fit in. And I don't know if I'm describing this very well, but it's a human condition, because we've been taught to be like this. We've been taught these things, and then we internalize it, and then we punish and destroy and chop off and ignore. And, you know, we're here to blow that shit up.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. And so I mean, like, and it really does take courage. I mean, people maybe, I don't know about you, but people think, oh, Rachel, you're already out there. What more is there? I was like, oh, well, you just better.
You have no idea.
Right. But like, this is like your next layer.
Yes, it definitely is.
Yeah.
And, you know, people have been saying to me, oh, you're so brave to do this. And I get that on one hand. Thank you. And I am called to break the structure. I am called to point, not point a finger, because that's not quite the right way of saying it, but to open the conversation to what's actually happening in a way that hasn't been before. There hasn't been a documentary about this before. And I feel a sense of responsibility in the storytelling of it, but also I'm just freaking called to do it, bottom line.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's what continues this journey, right? It was so funny. If you ever do a lesbian one, I want to be hit up for that part of it, just FYI, because we were in Costa Rica, and of course we meet these other women there and they're lesbians. And this one comes up and she like gives me like this bro handshake kind of thing. And I was like, I don't know what's going on here. It was such an awkward moment. Like, yeah. I don't know, like, am I supposed to like do this thing? And literally I felt, that's the most awkward I felt in years. And I was like, what is happening? And even in those kind of layers, right, within, as we're talking, the LGBTQ plus, and you in particular with gay men, and me in particular in experiencing the lesbian world, like, are you butch? Are you femme? Are you whatever? Like all of it needs honestly, to be addressed.
At one point in this process, I thought, oh, we have a series here. I'm creating a series because it's so many layers as we've been talking about, and you know, we'll see, that could still potentially happen. You know, the film is in post-production right now. We'll be out likely within a year, hopefully within the year, out into the world, and we'll see what happens. It could potentially be sold then into a series, which I would love to do if that does happen. But if it doesn't, because that really was never the intention, getting the story out is the most important part for me. Helping people.
Yeah. And again, opening up a different perspective. And so many people can see within your story, within my story, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And if we come like full circle to the road of radical visibility, we're talking about the connection that we feel and how we honor that connection and throw out the shame and the judgment and all the fucking things that stop us from truly feeling connected in this world. You know,
this film took 7 years to make. And there's a reason for that. Part of me felt, it's because it's difficult to raise money, the logistics of a documentary. But really, I realized that it took me 7 years to be ready for it to be made. But it is a process. And for anybody that's listening out there that's like, I don't even know where to begin, just start.
Yes.
And you don't need to be at the end today, right? That it is a journey. It is a road, going back to your title. It's a road, and it's taking one step and then the next step and the next step. And I want to say, honor the step. I talk about this a lot with my students, that when a baby walks, we say, oh my goodness, yes, take a step, take one more. Then they fall down, right? And then they hop back up and they go, okay. But as an adult, when we're taking the baby step, we'll say, I only took that one step. That wasn't very good. And you would never say to a baby, well, baby, you only took one step. You suck. Right?
Yeah.
So can you cheer on your baby? Can you cheer that step? Can you be the cheerleader on the other end, holding your arms out so that the child in you can run towards you?
Oh my gosh. Like such a beautiful thing. And doing this deeper work, knowing I had a visualization where I was in, I'm sorry, what's the park in New York City?
Central Park?
Central Park. Thank you. And here I am dressed in this, like the outfit I wore for New Year's in 2023. And the little me dressed in the same outfit and just twirling around. And it was like, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
When I tell my clients, like, you scoop her up, you scoop them up, and you're just like, hey, I got you.
Yeah.
Right. And you can direct them to the path and you can let them express themselves. But it's like this nurturing that you do for yourself that is really essential to experience life the way you want.
Yeah. My little Nick just lit up when you were talking about that. I felt that little Nick in me was like, yes, yes, girl, yes.
Yeah. So, well, I think that we might have to have a follow-up interview, obviously in the very near future when the film comes out. But having you today has been such an inspiration. And I know that for those of you that are listening, or if you're watching the YouTube video, we would love to hear what inspired you today about this episode. If you DM me, I'll make sure that Nick gets this message, because this is, like he is saying, what we are meant to do, what we are called to do. And I am not going to live life any other way. And it's just going to be more and more and more. So I want to encourage you. You can reach out directly to Nick too. You can follow his social media. Stay tuned for the next interview. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up today, Nick?
The call is within you. The call is within you, and we all have it. It looks different. It may not be on video, on camera, on stages. That may not be you. Yours might look different, but the call is within for you to be radically yourself, for you to be radically visible in your way. But it's there. Trust it.
Well, okay. So thanks again for being here. I will end this show like I end every single show. Please make sure to stay true to yourself, be kind to others, and always, always, always honor the wise one that is within you. I will see you all on the next road to radical visibility. Until then, bye. Hold up, don't go yet. If this episode inspired you to be 100% yourself, 100% of the time, no shame or guilt needed, even just that little bit more, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. I'm here, and I know you are too, to make a positive impact in the world. So don't forget to share the love. And if you were left wanting more of this type of kick-ass content, then don't forget to click the like and subscribe button. Until next time, make sure to stay true and be you. Until then, bye.